Ever stared at a 100-foot roll of PEX pipe and thought, there's no way I can plumb an entire house with this stuff? Maybe you have been quoted thousands of dollars by a plumber, or maybe you just want the satisfaction of knowing you did it yourself. Either way, I'm going to walk you through the complete process of installing PEX plumbing in an entire house, from choosing the right fittings and tools all the way through running your main trunk line and capping everything off for a pressure test. And stick around to the end, because I have got a pro tip about how to batch check every single connection you make so you catch mistakes before the drywall ever goes up. Let's get into it. PEX pipe has pretty much taken over residential plumbing in new construction, and for good reason. It is flexible, it is affordable, and it does not require soldering like copper does. The best part? Even if you have never touched a plumbing fitting in your life, this is a project you can absolutely handle. Once you understand how the pieces work together and follow a logical order, you will be amazed at how straightforward it really is. So let me start by walking you through exactly what you need. The type of PEX we are going to be working with is called PEX Type B. This is the most common type you will find at your local home improvement store. And the big advantage is that it uses a simple crimp ring system. No expensive expanding tools needed. You just slide a small copper ring over the pipe, insert your fitting, position the ring, and crimp it down with a crimping tool. That is it. Now, PEX comes in two colors, red and blue. You do not technically have to use red for hot and blue for cold. You could run all one color and it would work just fine. But I strongly recommend using red for your hot lines and blue for your cold lines. Because when you are crawling around under the house 6 months from now, trying to trace a line, you will thank yourself for color coding everything. Trust me on that one. You can buy PEX in 100-foot rolls or in 20-foot straight sticks. For a whole house, I would grab a few 100-foot rolls for your main trunk runs, and then pick up some 20-foot sticks for your shorter stub outs and fixture connections. They are just easier to work with for the short stuff. Now, let me walk you through your fittings. You are going to need 3/4-inch tees for branching off your main trunk line. You will need reducing tees, which are 3/4 on the run and 1/2 inch on the branch. And you will use a lot of these because most of your individual fixtures only need a 1/2 inch supply. Then grab some 1/2 inch elbows, 1/2 inch couplings, 3/4 inch elbows, and 3/4 inch couplings for extending pipe. You will also want a 3/4 inch shutoff valve for your main water supply inside the house. For plugs, which you will need to cap off your lines for pressure testing, I would just get those in plastic. They are cheap and you are going to cut them off later anyway. Everything else, I prefer brass fittings. They cost about twice as much as the plastic ones. But if I am going to do this job, I want to do it right the first time. For tools, you need a crimping tool that handles both 3/4 and 1/2 inch rings. You need a ratchet-style pipe cutter, which gives you a nice, clean square cut every time. You need a go or no-go gauge, and this usually comes included if you buy the crimping toolkit. You will need crimp rings in both 3/4 and 1/2 inch sizes. Grab a drill with a 7/8 inch bit for your 3/4 inch pipe holes and a 5/8 inch bit for your 1/2 inch pipe holes, a pair of needle nose pliers, a tape measure, a pencil, and some 1/2 inch pipe clamps and 3/4 inch pipe clamps for securing everything. That is your complete shopping list. Now that you have got everything you need, the first real step is planning your layout and stubbing your pipes down through the floor. The method we are using is called trunk and branch. Think of it like a tree. You run one main 3/4 inch trunk line along your floor joists in the basement or crawl space, and then you branch off with smaller 1/2 inch lines to each individual fixture. Before you ever go under the house, you want to drill your holes and push your pipe stubs down through the floor from above. That way, when you get into the crawl space, you can see exactly where each fixture is and where your trunk line needs to go. Here is how to mark your holes. At a sink, your hot and cold supply lines need to be 8 inches apart, center to center, and 3 inches away from the wall. For a toilet, you want your supply line 6 inches to the left of the center of the toilet flange and 6 inches up off the finished floor. For each location, use your 5/8 inch drill bit for 1/2 inch pipe or your 7/8 inch bit for 3/4 inch pipe, and drill straight down through the floor plate. Then cut yourself a piece of PEX about 3.5 feet long. That gives you enough length to have 21 inches sticking up above the floor, which is the height you need for sink supply lines, with plenty left hanging below to reach your trunk line later. And here is an important rule. Always put the red pipe on the left and the blue pipe on the right when you are facing the wall. Every single fixture, same convention, no exceptions. That way there is never any confusion about which line is hot and which is cold. By the way, if you are finding this advice helpful, you should know it is just a small sample of what I have put into my new guide, The Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It is packed with step-by-step instructions for hundreds of repairs that can save you thousands. To grab your copy, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or just use the first link in the description below. All right, let us continue. Let me show you how to make a proper crimp connection, because you are going to be making a lot of them. We will use an outdoor anti-freeze spigot as our first fixture. Now, the critical thing about these anti-freeze spigots is that they must be installed on a slight downward angle pointing towards the outside of the house. If you install it level or tilted upward, water will sit in that copper tube and freeze. When you shut the spigot off, the valve actually closes way up at the interior end, and the remaining water drains out through that downward slope. So when you drill through the exterior wall, tilt your drill slightly upward if you are drilling from the outside. That gives your spigot the slope it needs. Before you mount the spigot, fish your 3/4 inch PEX through the wall studs first. This is so much easier to do before the spigot is locked into place. And here's where PEX really shines. You can flex it up and down and snake it through framing without needing an elbow at every turn. Try that with copper or CPVC, and you would be adding fittings everywhere. Now, for the actual connection. First, check the end of your PEX pipe. If it is a factory end, make sure it is square. If it is not perfectly square, put your ratchet cutter over it and snip off just enough to get a clean, straight edge. A square cut is important because it ensures the pipe seats fully onto the fitting. Next, slide your crimp ring over the pipe first, before you do anything else. Then push the fitting, in this case the spigot connection, into the end of the pipe. Now slide that crimp ring forward until it sits about 1/8 of an inch from the end of the pipe. Not right at the edge and not too far back. 1/8 of an inch is the sweet spot. Here is a little trick I picked up. Take a pair of needle nose pliers and gently squeeze the crimp ring just enough to hold it in position so it does not slide around while you grab your crimping tool. Then take your crimping tool, fit it over the ring, make sure it is centered, and squeeze until the tool locks. You will feel it click. When you release, the ring should be tight and uniform all the way around. Now grab your go or no-go gauge. The go side, which you can identify by the small notch cut out of it, should slip right over the crimped ring. Flip it to the no-go side, and it should not fit over the ring. If it does, your crimp is not tight enough, and you need to redo it. Check every single connection this way. Once all your stubs are through the floor and your above-floor fixtures are connected, it is time to head into the crawl space or basement and run your main trunk line. If you are working with 100-foot rolls, unroll the pipe and straighten it out before you take it under the house. It is so much easier to work with when it is not fighting you in a coil. Start at the point where your main water line enters the house. Elbow straight up with a 3/4 inch elbow so your trunk line runs along the bottom of the floor joist. Right after that elbow, install your 3/4 inch shutoff valve in line. This is your main interior shutoff, and you want it accessible so if anything ever goes wrong, you can kill the water to the whole house fast. Secure your trunk line to the joist using 3/4 inch half clamps every 3 to 4 feet. Run the pipe straight along your joist, and every time you reach a fixture location where pipe is stubbed down through the floor, install a T fitting to branch off. For most fixtures, you will use a reducing T, 3/4 inch on the trunk, and 1/2 inch on the branch going up to the fixture. One honest note about PEX. While the flexibility is a huge advantage, getting your crimping tool into tight spots between joists can be a real pain. Just take your time and make sure you have enough room to fully close the tool before you commit to a connection location. For your hot water lines, run your 3/4 inch supply from the trunk directly to where your water heater will be. Mark the height where the pipe needs to come out of the wall. For a 50-gallon water heater, that is typically around 5 feet 6 inches off the floor. Use blocking between the studs so you have something solid to secure the pipe to. Then from the water heater location, run your hot water trunk line back along the joists, teeing off at each fixture location, just like you did with the cold side. At the end of a run, where you're only feeding one last fixture like a shower, reduce down from 3/4 inch to 1/2 inch. No sense running oversized pipe to a single fixture. Once all your lines are run and connected, it is time to cap everything off for your pressure tests. Take your 1/2 inch plastic plugs and install one on every single stub out that is poking up through the floor. These seal the system so you can pressurize it and check for leaks before any drywall goes up. For the stubs you capped, leave them a little long. You are going to cut them back down to the right height after your pressure test is done. And do not forget nail plates. Anywhere a pipe passes through a stud or floor plate, install a metal nail plate over that spot. This protects your pipe from drywall, screws, and nails. It takes 5 minutes, and it could save you from a catastrophic leak inside a finished wall. Do this for every single penetration. No exceptions. Now, let me walk you through some common problems and how to handle them. First, if you get a slow drip at a connection after you turn the water on, the most common cause is a crooked cut on the pipe end. The pipe did not seat fully onto the fitting, and water is sneaking past. The fix is to cut the ring off, trim the pipe square, and redo the connection. You can avoid this entirely by always checking that your cuts are clean and straight before you crimp. Second, if your go or no-go gauge passes on both sides, meaning the no-go side slips right over the ring, your crimp is not tight enough. This usually means your crimping tool did not fully close. Make sure you are squeezing until the tool locks every time. Third, a frozen pipe at an exterior spigot almost always means the spigot was installed level or tilted the wrong direction. There's no shortcut here. You need to reinstall it at a downward angle toward the outside. Fourth, if you hear water hammer, which is a loud banging in the pipes when a valve shuts off, you may need to install a water hammer arrestor at the fixture causing it. These are inexpensive and just thread right onto the supply line. And fifth, if a pipe run seems to have low water pressure compared to others, check whether you accidentally used half-inch pipe where you should have used 3/4 inch on a trunk run. Undersized trunk lines will starve downstream fixtures of pressure. The good news is, if you follow the steps we just covered, you should be able to avoid most of these issues entirely. Now, for that bonus tip I promised at the beginning. When you are stubbing your pipes up through the floor, always leave them 6 to 8 inches longer than you think you need. I know it looks messy with all those long pipes sticking up everywhere, but here is why it matters. After your pressure test, when it is time to make your final connections to sinks and toilets, you want enough length to make a clean, square cut at exactly the right height. If you cut them too short now, you are stuck. You cannot add length to a stub without adding a coupling and another crimp connection, which is one more potential leak point inside a wall. The other trick is batch checking. Instead of checking every crimp with your go or no-go gauge one at a time as you make them, make 5 or 6 connections in a row, then go back and check them all at once. You will work faster, and you are less likely to accidentally skip one because you are checking them as a deliberate step rather than an afterthought. I do this on every job, and it has saved me from missed connections more times than I can count. Before you go, I want to make sure you know about my complete guide, the Ultimate Plumbing Playbook. It goes way deeper than we can in a single video, with 85 pages covering everything from clearing any clog to replacing your own water heater. If you want to stop wasting money on simple fixes, this book is for you. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description to get your copy. Thanks for watching. And if you have not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next one. I will see you in the next video.